time to give your opinion on the Bills and the NFL. Let's talk football live. Now, here's the 13 Wham Sports Team.
We're back. We're back in studio. How about that tonight? And you've got us for a full hour. Dan, an hour? You're getting overtime for this?
Better be.
Yeah. we hope we have the energy to get through this. I'm sure you have enough pontificating to do for all three of us.
We could go to halftime of the game to pontificate. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates, Jenna Cottrell, all with you tonight. So here's the deal. We're with you here on Facebook and on YouTube on the Buffalo Plus page until 7:30, and then we're going to stay with you in this format, but 7:30 to 8, we're also on 13 Wham ABC. That is because in Rochester, the game itself tonight, Bills, Patriots on 13 Wham ABC. And Dan, I'll start with you. This has happened a bunch of times where the one team is champs already. They're determining whether their seed's going to be, resting players. This isn't a Bills-Patriots game. And the other team is
dead. Yeah, nothing to play for. Happens all the time. Yeah. If 2020 wasn't a weird enough year, we know it is definitely for sure, because the Bills are going to head to Foxborough with an AFC East title in hand, and the Patriots are playing for absolutely nothing. Bills are playing for a lot also in terms of seeding. They are currently now in the 3 seed after Pittsburgh won yesterday, but the Bills, as long as they take care of their last 2 games with wins against New England and Miami, will take the 2 seed. And Mike, we have talked about this for the last week or so, how important that 2 seed is.
Yeah, I think it's huge for them. You saw the way Pittsburgh played. And Jenna, Sean McDermott does not seem to me to be the kind of guy who says, you know what, you guys take this week off. I'm going to let you rest just to get ready for the playoffs. Now, he did it last year because everything had already been decided. Yeah. But if they've got something to play for, I think his starters are going to be out there this week and next week.
I don't think of Sean McDermott as a relaxed, laid-back type of guy, and especially now as the Bills look to play in the postseason with everything at stake, how well the season has gone so far for Buffalo. This is the type of team, Sean McDermott always says, control what you can control, and the Bills have the control to do that with an ability to win if they can go out and do exactly that. But yeah, I don't picture Sean McDermott being a, hey, let's just take it and see how it goes kind of moment.
No, and look, we don't know what the circumstances are going to be. It was a wild day yesterday. Ask any Cleveland Browns fan. But in terms of where they are, Dan, you said it, you know, they want that 2 seed. You watch the way Pittsburgh played, and you say to yourself, do you really want to be in Pittsburgh playing that team as opposed to being in Buffalo? The only reason I bring that up is you go down to Pittsburgh and it goes back and forth and you lose a tough game. You're going to look back and say, I think it would have been different if we were in Buffalo.
Yeah, and it's so difficult now because the shuffling of the top of that conference is just crazy right now. And it all comes down to 2 home playoff games or 1, and obviously you got to win the first one first, so let's take care of that. But also it's the fact of you don't want to be the one facing Kansas City possibly in the second game. Like you want to be seeing them, and a bunch of comments are coming in on the 13 Wham Facebook page saying Bills Chiefs AFC Championship. Yeah, I think we've all agreed that that's a real possibility where we all think that's going. But you want the easier path. You want to face the Chiefs in the championship game and not in the divisional round.
Yeah, and Jenna, in terms of the way the team is playing too, look, you know, we've seen teams buzz into the playoffs playing great, and then it falls apart. The Baltimore Ravens last year are a great example, and then they got beat in the first round. But I think this team has been on such I'll say a roll. They really have been. I mean, they're playing their best all year. I don't think they look like they need a week off.
No, I mean, I feel like Josh Allen has been 7-1. The Bills have been 7-1 in their last 8 games. This team just seems to love playing with one another. And I know that sounds so simple and so cliche, but at the same point, there's a lot of teams. Look, the Steelers, they need a little bit of rest. They haven't had a break in like 2 months. But other teams like this, I think the Bills thrive on coming in, getting in their work, feeling that rhythm, and then going from there. We do have some good comments that I do want to get to.
Go ahead.
Jason King saying, let's go Buffalo. Thomas Burke saying, Sean plays to win the game. A lot of people talking about feeling like a victory tonight. Swatis saying, go Bills, let's go Buffalo. So people are feeling pretty good on the chat.
Okay, let's talk about this. This is a team, you said they enjoy playing together. They do. And I always say this to you guys. This is that rarefied air. This is that time where everybody is pulling together. They have this common goal. They haven't been there as a team before. Yes, they were disappointed last year with the Texans, but that was their first time as a group being in the playoffs. So that was disappointing. But there is very little negative energy with this team.
Well, and it's interesting. The negative energy that was there at times, it's gone.
Yeah.
I think the one instance we're talking about is Quentin Spain, who for whatever reason wasn't playing and all of a sudden is just cut like nothing. And of course he finds a job in no time because he's a good offensive lineman, especially at a time where the Bills needed O-line help. Like, this is get on the ship or you're off.
Yeah.
Like this is where you talk about rarefied air. What they're doing, Jenna, is this is very unique to see in an NFL locker room.
Yeah, it's like a college program, and I think a lot of teams or a lot of fans don't realize that in the NFL. This is their guys' professional jobs. They go into work, they leave. Like, you don't have to be friends with your teammates. No one kind of expects that, but I feel like the Bills, they always say, hey guys, we're like a family. And I feel like that is the truth. But I also think what's been important about this season is those back-to-back losses to the Titans, to the Chiefs earlier on. I think those were huge because everyone that was on the Bills bandwagon jumped off. And the Bills were able to rally around one another and say, okay, guys, there were people that thought we were for real. They're wrong. The ones that did not think that we could pull it together, I think that kind of had a rallying cry. And from there, I just think it's also Western New York. Like, I think that there's not a whole lot of nightlife during COVID anyways as well. So it's been a time for the guys to get to know one another. And it's hard to argue with those results.
No, it is hard to argue with it because they're winning. And right now they're a half a game behind the Steelers for that second seed because Pittsburgh found a way to win. And you never know how that's going to go, right? Look at Pittsburgh. Like, they looked dead. In fact, going into that game yesterday, in fact, into the third quarter, I would have said to you, they're the worst team that's going to be in the playoffs, and they're the one everybody wants to play. And then all of a sudden, it started to click. And attitudes change, and they have talent. Now, look, I still don't think they're a great team, but we're talking about one game here. And we had asked fans, and we'll talk more about this at 7:30, on if you could pick an opponent for the Bills in the first round. And it's hard in the AFC.
It really is, because there's probably going to be at least a 10-win team. There could be an 11-win team that misses out on the postseason. Sorry, Browns fans. Like, that really could be you. But, yeah, this is interesting because I know a couple people have asked me, like, who would you want the Bills to play? It's like, I would have said, especially at halftime yesterday, I wouldn't want to play the Colts.
Yeah.
And then they just crumble. So, like, again, that's what's so impressive, I think, about what the Bills have done this year. Their two losses to Tennessee and Kansas City aren't bad losses, and their loss to Arizona is on a Hail Mary. Like, where's the Bills' bad loss? There are a lot of other teams that can say, you know, they laid an egg. Like, even the Browns. I mean, you can blame stuff on this, but, like, the Bills have been such a composed team that they haven't had that letdown spot. And that's tricky going in to this week. I understand playoff seeding is still available, but it's still Bill Belichick at the other side.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, Jenna, the closest they've come to a bad loss.
Titans?
No, to a bad loss was the Patriots game.
Oh,
that's the closest they came to losing a game that they should win.
Yes.
They're better than the Patriots.
The Jets was a weird one, too. That second Jets game.
That's a good one. But the Patriots were literally driving to win the game in the final minute. And then, of course, as we all predicted, Justin Zimmer comes through.
and that's been the weird thing about this team is that when Micah Hyde, or I think it was Jordan Poyer, said last week after they clinched the division, was saying how mature of a team this is and how they've been able to overcome adversity, and they're never too high and they're never too low. And if you look at the team just especially recently, you wouldn't think this team has faced that much adversity. They haven't had a big COVID outbreak in the team. They haven't had to overcome too many, especially recently, deficits in games.
Yeah.
But then you look at what they did against the Rams, blowing a big lead, then coming back to win that game, finding a way to win against the Jets, that second game where the offense just couldn't get in the end zone. Like, they have had these moments where they've been able to overcome small obstacles.
Well, I also think, too, the injuries, like to Milano as well as Tremaine Edmonds, players like that are huge roles players on their defense in particular that haven't been healthy. Now they are, but I think during that stretch of the Titans game and the Chiefs game and games like that, it was like the question of health. You know, I think Matt Milano was on a pitch count back then. I mean, now you see how much this defense has settled in. I mean, we didn't even talk early on in the season. Taron Johnson, it was like, whew, a liability out on the field. And even he has turned a corner. Levi Wallace, another guy that I feel like has now got his feet under him. But, yeah, I mean, I think with how well this Bills offense has been playing, a lot of credit obviously goes to them and Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Cole Beasley. But I also think the page that the defense has turned has been huge, and it's been kind of remarkable considering early on how much the team really struggled, and now to see where they're at, I mean, it's been huge to see that, especially now as you go into January and what that means as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a couple of things that Jenna said. Later, we'll talk a little bit more about the injuries and where they've been. But, Dan, when we talk about this defense, not only are they playing better, they're contributing in a different way.
Yes.
They're turning over the opponents, and they've scored in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Taron Johnson running one back.
Jerry Hughes.
Turning
back the clock to his running back days.
We checked today. We do not believe Jerry's getting offensive snaps tonight.
Don't think so. I think he probably lobbied for it.
Ball security was a bit of an issue, it looked like, so maybe it was
but he held on to the ball.
Yep.
Sean McCoy said it looked fine to him, so I'm sure it was good. But in terms of that defense, and you and I and Jenna, we've talked about this a lot during the year. There's ways to play defense in the NFL. It's not like the old 85 Bears, though they took the ball away from people. I mean, we're talking about teams that routinely, the good teams, score 28, 30, 34 points.
Yeah.
You better be able to take it away from the other team.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's funny. Takeaways are something that every team wants, but you can't depend on them either. I think, I look at the Miami Dolphins. They're a team that leads the league in takeaways, but they didn't look great against Oakland. They had to hang on in a weird way in that game, too. But the Bills have found timely plays.
Excuse me, John Gruden. It's not Oakland. Since, you know, Gruden wore the Oakland hat during the game. It's Las Vegas.
Yeah, it is.
By the way, the craziest game. That is the craziest game of the year,
That was the
right?
most Fitzpatrick moment ever.
That was amazing.
Talk about a no-look pass.
Seriously.
My goodness. But, yeah, you're right. You come up with those kind of plays. It's timely.
And it's funny. We've talked about, Jenny, you talked about the struggles that Levi Wallace has had. And we've asked Leslie Frazier, we've asked Sean McDermott about this. And it simply comes out of guys who need to step up and make plays. And they weren't making plays earlier in the year. They're making them now. And that's the thing is that, Jenna, what do I like to say? What is Micah Hyde's favorite quote?
Confidence is a hell of a drug.
And right now they're on it.
Yeah. Well, even A.J. Klein and the progress that he's made from the beginning of the season to where he's been in these last couple of weeks. It's funny because this Bills defense is so mature, and we knew a lot of these guys coming in this season, but I felt like they really needed that time early on. And there were some mistakes made. You know, the COVID offseason made things a little interesting as well. But now to see where they're at, and like you said, the plays that they've made have been impactful. Those turnovers, being able to score, the pick six. That, to me, is something we really hadn't seen in these last couple of years from the Bills in terms of being able to contribute as well on that end, too.
Yeah. Jenna mentioned the injuries. I am still amazed at how healthy this team has been.
For another year.
No, look, we've been talking about it for 2 years.
Don't do it.
I don't think it's...
People were in my mentions. I made a tweet. A funny tweet about Patrick Mahomes threw an interception in the red zone.
Yeah.
You know, Josh Allen kind of laughed at that.
Right.
Everybody's like, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
Yeah.
I think Bills Mafia is a little stitious.
Well, yes, a little stitious.
A little stitious in the words of Michael Scott.
I don't believe it's just good luck that they've been as healthy as they've been. You know, Jenna mentioned, Matt Milano nicked up a little, John Brown. Yeah, you miss those guys. But, I mean, guys, come on. Look around the league at the injuries that you see. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense has taken a pounding. I mean, they've lost great players. You know, every team in this league, even the good ones, have lost players. You know, the Chiefs may have lost their rookie running back. I mean, we don't know if he's going to be back. And my goodness, Sammy Watkins is nicked up again.
Who would have thought?
Sorry, that was a little snarky. He's got a Super Bowl ring.
Yes, he
does.
does.
We can't pick on Sammy. But in terms of this, and I think it's a combination of things. I think this organization trains their players well. I think they treat them well. I think they have a phenomenal training facility. And I think there is a mindset in that building to be on the field. And these players get themselves back on the field.
Well, that training facility, too.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point because we talk about that rest versus rust heading into these last 2 weeks. And, Mike, we talked about, you know, you want to keep your starters. I don't think we sit anybody. But will Josh Allen and all the starters play in the fourth quarter?
We just mentioned Josh Allen.
We are 14 minutes into the show and just mentioned him.
You know, he's the quarterback who's having a pretty good year.
Yeah.
We just wanted to see if we could talk about the rest of the team without the quarterback.
It's a team, Mike. It's a team.
Speaking of that, I think it was Jordan Poyer. I was on the Zoom call with him, and I said, okay, Josh won another award. Is there any talk? Does anybody give him a hard time? Does anybody say? And he's like, no, not really. He said, Sean did say, I think when they were announcing that Josh won the Player of the Week again, he said he kind of laughed and said, like, I know you guys hear a lot about Josh in front of him, obviously, but saying that. But, man, it's hard to maintain.
It's the Josh Allen Award this year.
It really is. I mean, 4 times winning it and, you know, and normally when you win it 4 or like Lamar did last year 5 times, you win the MVP.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to win it.
Remember when you said Aaron Rodgers? You had a take earlier this year?
I said Aaron Rodgers was going to be MVP and then he was going to leave the Packers.
That wasn't it.
I said it was going to be his last year with the Packers.
Yeah, you did.
I don't think they want to get rid of him now.
No, I don't think so.
Something tells you?
No, I just had a feeling that could have gone the wrong way. It was totally wrong.
Yeah.
Because it has gone great. And I just think in terms of that, and just so people at home know, I know a lot of them probably don't comment, Josh is having an MVP level season.
Yes.
And in many years, he wins.
Yes.
I personally believe he's ahead of Mahomes right now.
Yes.
And Mahomes' team is going to end up at least 14-1 with him at quarterback and maybe 15. You know, who knows what they're going to do, let him rest. But he hasn't been Mahomes great. Oh, like yesterday, I mean, he took him down the field and scored, and he won the game. But he's been just tremendous. You know, he's been
we're a little watered down to what he's done
all the time. But if you just look at them individually, I'd say right now, I would, if you were allowed to vote 1, 2, 3.
Correct, which they don't.
They don't. I would have voted this year. I think Rodgers is 1.
Allen.
He's got, what, 46 touchdown pass? Allen second. Yep. And I would have had Mahomes third. So we'll see.
Imagine if the Packers would have used a first-round pick on an offensive player. Oh, they did.
Oh.
It was a first-round pick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or was it second? No,
it was a first-round pick on Jordan Love.
Yeah, you know what will really be something is if 3 years from now Jordan Love becomes a superstar.
Just Packers just hand it over.
And they just do it again.
A couple good comments on Facebook. Timothy Sinclair pointing out that the bye week came at a perfect time for the Bills.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge thing. And we talked about how late in the season it came. You talk about the Steelers, on the other hand. Their bye week was at, what, week 4?
Yeah.
And how all you heard over the broadcast of that game was how mentally exhausted they are. They're physically exhausted. It's draining. So Debbie O'Brien doesn't like you talking about injuries.
Okay, sorry, Debbie.
And Paul DiMitropoulos, big-time friend and fan of the show. It's amazing that the Bills haven't been hit with COVID like so many other teams.
Okay, so let's give an update on the COVID thing. John Brown, Jenna, well, he's back on the active roster.
He's from one list to another.
Yes, I was to say, not the list you want to go to either. Bill's putting him on the COVID reserve list.
Yeah.
TJ Yeldon, Bill's running back, testing positive for COVID. And then through the protocols and distancing, John Brown has now been added to the reserve list.
With Josh Thomas, the safety, and Christian Wade.
Christian Wade.
Yeah. It appears to be close contact. So, you know, John Brown, look, another week of John Brown being out, I think, is probably an okay thing.
It's okay.
Yeah, because he's a guy who already was coming off an injury, and you want him to be
earlier in the year.
Right. So they want him to be healthy. But to your point, I keep thinking about this. You know, everybody says about home games, road games, and all that type of thing. We've seen it happen. If the Bills were to win their first playoff game and then have to be going to Pittsburgh because they lost a game, and you deal with any sort of COVID issue. We've seen literally planes waiting on the tarmac for hours.
Cleveland waited.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay flew in. They were 12 hours they had to wait, and they were just sitting around.
Right. So picture those issues that have been multiple. The Steelers. Jenna, right? You were at that Steelers game.
They didn't fly into the morning of the game.
Because of a COVID issue, which became a hotel issue, which became a problem. So I think if you can avoid that, and every team's holding their breath. I know from what I've been told by people, they are in full alert when it comes to COVID now. Anything in and out of that building, they are doing everything they can. Yes, TJ Yeldon tested positive. We don't know the exact circumstances. We know he was around other players, but man, if you have that with the wrong position group, any team in the NFL.
Even Cleveland, 4 wide receivers yesterday.
Well, what's a great thing to do when you have 4 wide receivers out is throw the ball 56.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Hey, you're an Eagles fan. You know all about throwing to practice squad wide receivers.
Wow.
Can we not talk about that team? By the way, great loss yesterday to the Cowboys.
Well done.
It takes a lot for me to be sitting there happy to see the Cowboys win and the Eagles lose. Well, let me tell you something. It's a fool's gold to win the division now. Okay, so go ahead, Dallas. Go ahead, Giants. Go ahead, Washington football team. By the way, they're having an interesting week, too.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I would say so.
Dwayne Haskins, you got something else? Somebody else picking on me?
No. I think they're poking me. Timothy Sinclair saying they need to run the ball forever tonight. And somebody saying that
Oh, Timothy, that's
Somebody's
great.
responding to him and saying that the Bills running back should have at least 30 touches tonight.
Oh.
And I understand the Patriots rushing defense has been horrendous.
Yeah.
Specifically the last 2 weeks, they've allowed over 250 rushing yards combined in the last 2 games. Guess what? The Bills can do whatever they want tonight because there's no Stephon Gilmore. I don't really care about J.C. Jackson.
They didn't have Stephon Gilmore in the first game, and J.C. Jackson's pretty good defensive back.
He played well.
And Josh Allen did not throw for a touchdown in that first game.
That is why I think Josh Allen's going to have quite the night, is because even though they won against the Patriots earlier on this season, Josh didn't play particularly well. And then also Belichick's always had his number. So I think that's why this game, even though the Patriots are not the Patriots team we're used to, that's why I think you're going to see a pretty motivated Josh Allen.
All right, so let's talk about the most important thing tonight is
We're
I'm in
getting
the championship. We are getting pizza. I'm in the championship of my fantasy league, but this is a Bills-related thing. Terrible week for me and the guy I'm playing against. But tonight we're close, and he has Josh Allen.
Oh.
I have Stephon Diggs, the Bills defense, and Tyler Bass.
Wow.
It's really good.
It's going to be close.
I like your odds. The Patriots haven't scored a touchdown in 2 weeks. They haven't gotten in the end zone in 2 weeks.
Now look who's jinxing now.
I'm just saying. Like, you look at how good the Bills have been playing, and we'll get into this more, at the 7:30 when we really get into it. But this is I've been saying this. It was on the Buffalo Plus podcast. This is the time for the little brother to turn the tables on the big brother.
You want him to hurt him, don't you?
I want him to. I just think you can really. The Dolphins took away the ability to keep them out of the playoffs, but that doesn't mean you can't drive the final nail in the coffin.
So I mentioned it on the 6 o'clock news tonight that one of my best friends works for the Patriots, has for years. It's just painful to go into his house and see Super Bowl rings, but that's another story. And he texted me tonight and said, this is not what they're used to. He said they have, for the last 20 years, have always gone into the end of the season not knowing when the last game was going to be. They've either been in the playoffs, which is every year,
or the Super
and the
Bowl.
1 year they missed it, they were
the last week.
right up to the last week.
Yep.
So
Matt Castle.
Right, and they finished 11-5 that year and didn't make it.
Former Bills quarterback.
Yes. So for them, this is so strange. I'm curious as to from you guys, like he's even wondering, like how is his team going to respond in terms of effort? And I'm not going to go all J.J. Watt here. We know there's effort. There's effort playing hard, and then there's a team, playing hard and losing and just, they're just not good enough.
Yeah.
The Patriots haven't been here very often. Bill Belichick hasn't been here very often. Jenna, what effort level are we going to see out of New England tonight?
I think you're going to see effort. I just don't think the talent is there. Like when you look at the talent differential on these rosters, it's not even close that the Bills have the more talented roster. I think you're going to see a lot of effort out of the Bills as well. But it's just so weird to see a team like New England. And here's what I think the Bills are going to love is the fact that if they win tonight, that means that New England will finish with a record under 500 for the first time in a long time. But it's just, it's bizarre. It's just bizarre.
I would say right now, Dan, we'd have to really look at it. But if you took the starting 22 players for both teams, I wonder how many Patriots would start, especially tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, Stephon Gilmore is going to start on any team.
Yeah.
Maybe Jackson would be the second corner for the Bills. It depends on what you think of guys like McCourty.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the Bills are great at safety.
Yeah.
Their line isn't very good.
There may be somebody.
Yeah.
Honestly, there isn't a wide receiver who would start.
No.
James White. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's so strange.
And it's so interesting. We've talked about, I guess I probably should have gotten this point in when we were talking about injuries, but Bill Belichick listed 25 players as questionable. And I don't know if that was talent or effort or how they were going to perform, but that's half the team.
Their team is questionable. They've been questionable all year.
And so you're worried about the performance and effort you're going to get. It's going to be a questionable one.
And Jenna, the fact that Cam is starting tonight and not Jared Stidham, Does that say anything to you?
That says a lot to me, considering we've known how bad Cam Newton has played, and the fact that Jared Stidham is still not going to be the starter out there tonight. I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
Earlier on, before the season started, it was so much talk about Stidham, how
Dan
great he
loves
was.
Stidham.
I was to say, Dan, we know that you loved all that talk, but even now, to know that Cam Newton is still starting,
Hey,
that
Jenna,
says a lot.
Jenna, 31 other teams passed
31 other teams passed on Cam Newton.
Can you believe that?
And it might be 32 teams passing on him next year.
Oh,
I
would be, yeah.
He does have 5 touchdowns.
You can't wear the outfits, though.
This season.
If you're,
This season.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't wear those outfits,
Yeah.
though, if you're not a starter.
Yeah.
And he had a chance to beat the Bills.
Yeah,
he did.
He
Like,
did.
this is, again.
And it came down to him.
And the Patriots did win like 3 out of their next 4 after their loss in Buffalo and showed signs of life.
When they really showed signs of life was really early in that Seattle game. I know Seattle's defense stinks, but New England looked like a real offense in that game.
Yeah.
And they just haven't been. Look, they've made a lot of mistakes. They've drafted poorly.
Yeah.
The free agents they brought in haven't worked. Now, going forward, they are getting some players back who opted out this year. And
I appreciate how wary
he's
you
just
are.
too good of a coach.
I know you're so wary of Bill
He
turning
needs a
this quarterback.
Around. There's going to be
He needs a
veterans
lot
out
of
there.
things.
Yeah, there's a lot that you need.
Yeah.
He needs a wide receiver.
But he can usually find a way. He needs a quarterback to run his system. He doesn't have anybody on that roster.
Tom Brady made the playoffs this year.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
Just saying.
You know what's funny?
Bucs have a lot
I
of
wonder
talent.
if Tampa Bay makes the playoffs in the AFC.
That's a good point.
Ooh.
I don't
Hot
know.
take.
Yeah.
I wonder. I don't think they're.
I don't think they would.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I actually don't.
They have played awful
Yes.
against good teams.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have played horrendous.
And Detroit's not a good team.
Correct. They also didn't have a coach.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Talk,
too.
talk about, we talked about that in the beginning of the year, and I remember Lorenzo Alexander actually talked about how important it would be if, say, coaches became struck
Yeah.
with COVID and there was an outbreak in the coaching staff. You saw what happened with Detroit. They fired their coach, their interim head coach, pretty much all of their defensive coaches.
And how about
and their defensive players didn't apparently just.
So the interim coach has his special teams coach decide to call a fake kick without telling him in one game.
Amazing.
And he has to fire him. And then in COVID protocol, he
And
doesn't
also,
even
like
get
I
to
said,
coach.
We will talk about Brian Daboll coming up in a couple minutes as
Yes.
this kicks on over to the TV broadcast version of it. Brian Daboll, I mean, with how well he has done. You saw the Giants had the Dallas head coach, Jason Garrett.
Jason Garrett.
He had to miss plays. He had to miss a week because of close contact with COVID
Yeah.
tracing. Like, again, I know teams aren't necessarily going to bubble themselves. They're not going to try and do that. But, I mean, man, you really got to ramp up everything that is going on right now in your facilities.
This is where culture works. This is where in that locker room, what do you think Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer or on the offensive side, Josh Allen, what do you think he's saying to his teammates? Stay home this week. Nobody's out. Nobody's doing anything.
And that's what Micah Hyde said earlier in the year, that they really don't do anything. They come to the facility, they get tested, they go home, they go back to the facility. Like, that's it.
That's Western New York. There's
And, like,
nothing.
and for them, and Micah said, like, for him, it's fine because, like, this is his job. He's like, my wife's a little bored.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because.
But I think of also, too, Sean McDermott saying in the beginning of the season, like, whatever team handles COVID
Yeah,
the best
I
is the
think
team
it's-
that's going to have a shot.
I think it's a big part of it. So,
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Listen, we got a little bit of time here, but we want to make sure you stay with us on Facebook and YouTube, Buffalo Plus, and we thank you for all our subscribers on Buffalo Plus, growing all the time.
Yeah,
Through the
make
roof.
And all of our post game too. Check out Buffalo Plus because obviously this game ends late. I know you guys are going to be staying up late watching the game either tonight or certainly tomorrow morning. Click on that YouTube page or buffaloplus.com and you'll have tons of content. You'll hear from the players. You'll hear our opinion. These two will be pontificating. I will be giving the measured, quiet takes on the
Yes,
game.
you're always so
That's usually
shy.
what ends up happening. But
I do want to remind
yes.
some people to make sure to like as well. If you're
Yes.
watching right now and enjoying, be sure to like as well and comment. We want to hear from everyone. Like on Facebook, too. That way it gets our stuff out there and more people can be part of the Buffalo Plus team.
And when we say subscribe on YouTube, it is free.
It is
It's
free.
Yeah.
It was a great idea that Mike and I came up with.
Yeah, we
Don't-
did. We had a very
don't
good
you
idea.
dare.
Now it's on the record that we
It's
came
on
up
the
with.
Don't you
record.
dare.
It
It was
was.
my idea.
It was Jenna's idea.
It was
and
my idea. You
we're
always-
happy that you guys are part of it, and we're happy you're with us here, and we're going to continue doing this show. But for tonight, again, like we said, we're going to be on here until 8 o'clock. If you're in Rochester and you want to watch it on 13 Wham ABC and get ready for the game, go ahead and do that. But we're going to take a little break. We'll be right back on Facebook and YouTube and 13 Wham.
It's time to give your opinion on the Bills and the NFL. Let's talk football live. Now, here's the 13 Wham sports team.
This was the scene 8 days ago. The Bills coming back in the early morning hours after the AFC clinching win in Denver. Thousands of Bills fans greeting them at the Buffalo airport and cheering Josh Allen and company as AFC East champs. But this is where the work begins for this team as they get set for tonight's Monday night football game against the New England Patriots. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Football Live. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates, Jenna Cottrell, all with you tonight. Thanks for joining us here on 13 Wham ABC. You know the game comes up right here on 13 Wham at 8 o'clock. Also to our viewers on the 13 Wham Facebook page and the Buffalo Plus YouTube page. We will be reading your comments going along as we get you ready for football tonight. And I'll start with you, Dan, in this case. We've seen this before, right? Two teams, AFC East. One of them's the AFC East champs, and the other one is struggling, searching for an identity. We've seen it many times before.
Yeah, if 2020 wasn't weird enough, this really kind of drives the nail in that this is something we haven't seen before. The Bills are in a situation they haven't been in 25 years, and the Patriots haven't been in a situation since 2000. So this is a big change as I said before, the little brother kind of gets to turn the tables on the big brother and kind of rub his face in the mud and show him that things are different. Sean McDermott wouldn't say this was a changing of the guard game in the AFC East. He just called it the next game. But this game has so much more meaning than that moving forward.
It's going to be interesting, Jenna, to see how both teams handle this change in circumstance.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about it. It's just going to be bizarre having a Patriots team that we know is already eliminated from the postseason. If the Bills win tonight, that means that New England will finish with a record that is less than 500. And this is a Patriots team that is hurt and hurting, and we've seen them play poorly all season long. I think the Bills are really feeling good heading into tonight.
They smell blood in the water.
Yeah. You have to.
Yeah. We do have a roster update for you. Let's show you what's going on there. And it involves John Brown, the wide receiver. So he has been activated to the roster from the injured list, but he won't play tonight because now he's on another list, the COVID list. Brown and teammates Christian Wade and Josh Thomas were deemed to be in close contact with TJ Yeldon, who tested positive the other day. So none of those players will play. And Jenna, this COVID issue is an issue around the league. And for the Bills and the rest of the teams, you see it in a minor way for the Bills tonight because we're not even sure what Brown's role would have been if he would have played. Right. But this is something they got to guard against for the postseason.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it earlier. Sean McDermott talking about whatever team handles the COVID situation best is the team that's probably going to have a shot in the end. But this is so important, especially as we near Week 17, the playoffs. Like, this is the time for the Bills to really get serious. We know John Brown is on that COVID list. Not too many other players joining him, which is great for Buffalo because let's be real. This is a situation that has nothing to do with the on-the-field product, but can do everything. We saw the Browns. They had 4 of their wide receivers did not play yesterday. That is a huge detriment, and that's something the Bills cannot risk.
All right, let's start talking about tonight's game and what this Bills team has done. Now, in the first game against New England, the Patriots held Josh Allen without a touchdown pass, and the Bills' offense was kept in check in that game. But we've seen what's happened in the second part of this year. This Bills offense has been spectacular. Dan, let's break down exactly how good this offense has been and what a change it has been.
Yeah, the Bills have kept continuity even though they have struggled in years past. And to be more specific, well, how else can I say it? They've really stepped up their game this year. In the middle of last season, I asked Sean McDermott, where's the level of frustration?
Move the ball, score points. If we don't do that, I'm frustrated. Simply put. Okay, thanks.
So yesterday, I asked him again, how do you feel about your offense this year?
Yeah, I like it when they move the ball and score points.
Allen, end zone shot, got a man, caught for the touchdown. Jake.
The improvements this year are staggering. In 2019, the Bills were 24th in the league in points and yards per game. This year, Buffalo's offense ranks 5th in the NFL in points and 6th in yards.
That's the name of the game, right? I mean, you got to be able to do that to win games.
The offense has stepped up nearly 10 points a game, the largest jump in the NFL by any team.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that.
Allen looking, end zone, touchdown.
Last season, the Bills scored 30-plus points twice. This year, Buffalo has done it 6 times with 2 40-point performances.
You know, we feel that if we go out there and we execute how we're supposed to and we take care of the football how we're supposed to, you know, good things tend to happen.
So, yeah, there's something that's gotten better in 2020. And Josh Allen looks good in that hat.
Yeah.
The AFC East Championship hat. But, Mike, I think this is a testament to Brian Daboll, to Josh Allen's progress, and to Sean McDermott for not messing up the system. Josh is a young quarterback, and he's had continuity, which is something that a lot of young quarterbacks on struggling teams, on struggling offenses, they don't get that chance. And for Josh to have those two, and the bond between Daboll and Allen is super strong. Daboll has earned a head coaching job moving forward. We will talk about that coming up in a little bit, but can't say enough about what the continuity and stability has brought them.
Now, Jenna, I want to ask you about this because you saw that Dan was able to get a frown out of Sean McDermott last year and a smile this year.
That was scary.
But let's talk about this a little bit. Even though Sean McDermott is wired to be a coach who can win with defense and the running game, and he embraces the 20-17 game, I think he's smiling because, man, it's a lot easier to come up with a game plan when you think your offense can put 30 on the board every week.
And it's 2020, you know, this is a time of NFL scoring offenses.
It's almost 2021, by the way.
It's almost 2021. I know, we're gearing up for that. But this is to win in the NFL, you have to score points. And while Sean McDermott is a defensive head coach, he was asked earlier on before the season started what keeps him up at night. And he said, frankly, Josh Allen's development. Now, this was in the preseason.
He's sleeping well.
I was going to say, he's doing pretty well as of late. But you think about it. I mean, you think about 2018 and teams like that Josh was, you know, coming into his own. He didn't have a lot of talent around him, and to see the progress that he's made, I don't know if a lot of players have the ability to do that because of the consistency, but also like the ability for Josh to get better is something that, I mean, Bills fans, it's been impressive to see.
All right, so Sean McDermott many times references the quarterbacks he's seen develop. With Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb, and with Carolina, it's Cam Newton.
Yes.
So Cam Newton was asked about the Bills' offense and about Josh Allen in particular. And, well, here's what Cam had to say.
You know, I'm a big fan of Josh, and he's actually getting coached by, you know, a person that I know extremely well, and Ken Dorsey. He was my quarterback coach, you know, the year I won the MVP. So I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if he even wins it this year. You know, he's an extremely talented player with a big arm and with the mobile skills that he does present. You know, I'm always rooting for him, obviously not for certain circumstances, but, you know, I wish him the best.
So Cam sees him as a possible MVP, and I think a lot of people do. Now, you got a comment here, and it leads right into our next segment.
Yeah, a comment on our 13WAM Facebook page by David Smith says, Daboll is going nowhere. The Pagulas will pay him.
Ah, is that the case? And what do the players think? When we come back, Brian Daboll, could he be a head coach somewhere else in 2021 when we return on Let's Talk Football Live? Hey, thanks for staying with us on Facebook and YouTube. And I think you guys are going to both enjoy the Brian Daboll piece and also be scared to death if you're a Bills fan.
Couple good comments as well coming on the Facebook page. Paul Dimitropoulos, I'm starting to think the Bills might be for real. I think we are too. I think we got on that page about, I think we started drinking the Kool-Aid maybe 3-4 weeks ago when they kept this rolling. But to David's comment, Daboll's going nowhere because the Pagulas will pay him. There's only 32 head coaching jobs in the NFL.
Yes, and that is the case. Like, I do believe that the Pagulas would pay
Correct. He's
to
not
keep
going to
Brian
leave because
Daboll.
of money. Like that's not why he's going to leave. He's going to leave because you get into coaching.
Okay.
You get into coaching
to be a head coach.
But here's what I will tell you. Money is a factor, though.
Sure.
Because head coaches start at the beginning. Look, a good coordinator, a couple of $1 million a year. A head coach, it starts at 5 at 25. I mean, I throw that number around like we would know any of it. But we're talking about 5 years, $25 million.
That's what Rex got, right?
Yeah. And the Pagulas are still probably paying him and Whaley and everybody else. But what I'm saying is it's real money, but it's also, as Dan said, one of 32. So, we will see.
And that wouldn't be a knock against Buffalo, Jenna.
No.
No, it's not at all. It's just like you were talking about earlier. Like Daboll, when you get into coaching, you want to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And so when you have the opportunity, and his resume is not going to look, I mean, I'd be shocked if it looked any better next year. So
That's
it's like go
point.
when you're hot. When you're a hot name, you go.
Chargers.
All right.
I could
Hang
see
with
that
us
for
here.
sure.
We're going to be dipping to black here, to use a little TV phrase, and then coming back on 13 Wham. Welcome back to Let's Talk Football Live. The many faces of Brian Daboll. Look at him. See, he's with the Patriots twice back in the days of the Super Bowls, the early Super Bowls, and then he left, went to like the Browns. He went to the Dolphins as a coordinator. He went to the Jets as a quarterback's coach. There he is at Alabama, going full beard look, working down there for Coach Saban. And now he's with the Buffalo Bills. He really did
That is
that.
not a Southern look.
You know, it is kind of interesting. You know, he was on that staff that won the national championship game, and he had Jalen Hurts, who
And
they
Tua.
benched at halftime and brought Tua in to win the national championship. So
It's gotten a little bigger, and the beard's gotten a little bit more fuller.
Yes, it is. But in terms of the way he runs the offense, Dan, I'll start with you. Fans used to have a lot of questions about Daboll.
Not anymore.
You know, every once in a while there's a play that doesn't work. I mean, Andy Reid has plays that don't work.
Yeah.
But he's had a lot more hits than misses.
And I think when you actually get to hear the players talking about Brian Daboll, you hear about Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. We're two guys this week that were asked about, hey, what would your pitch be to a team that would look at Brian Daboll as a head coach? And they said pretty much, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to lose him.
Well, you're going to hear them in a minute. In fact, let's take a look at that right now. We're talking about a guy in Brian Daboll who has been around this league a while. He's 45 years old, born in Canada, grew up basically in Buffalo, went to the University of Rochester, has a lot of ties to Western New York, but head coaching opportunities could be out there. What do his players think about that? What does Daboll think about it now while he's still trying to get to the Super Bowl? Take a look. No one knows Brian Daboll as a coach more than his guys, but ask them for an endorsement to another team about being their head coach.
I'm not giving a pitch to any team for Brian Daboll. That's my pitch.
Beasley even has a timeline for Daboll in Buffalo.
I told him he can't leave until I'm done.
But that might happen this offseason. Teams will come calling.
Certainly some things are humbling, and you appreciate that.
No one has benefited from Daboll's coaching more than Josh Allen, from raw rookie to star QB. But that relationship goes beyond coach and player.
I love him, not just as a coach, but as a person. He's an awesome dude. And, again, he's, like I said, one of the best, if not the best offensive coordinator in the game right now.
Daboll stays focused on that job, not a job he might have someday.
The minute you start thinking about other things, the minute you start slipping on the job you have, and that's not my nature. That's never been my nature.
Stephon Diggs doesn't want Daboll to go anywhere, but he did say another team would be getting a guy ready to be a head coach.
He handles everything the right way, and he comes at you from all angles, not just a player's coach, but a guy that understands the game, and he's a professional. He's serious about it. He's passionate, and I love playing for him.
You know what I was thinking, and I was putting that story together, and you guys have interviewed all of them, but different types of personalities. Stephon Diggs, the new guy. Cole Beasley's been around the league. Josh Allen is the quarterback.
Yep.
But they all talk about Brian Daboll sort of in the same way.
Yeah.
They love the guy.
And it's not only his play calling, Jenna, but it's the relationships that he has built with the players, right?
He even talked about how, Stephon Diggs was asked about how he was able to build such a quick relationship with Brian Daboll. And Daboll said it was the fact that on the offseason, he would just call and FaceTime Stephon Diggs, and they would only talk nothing about football. It was everything else. And I think Brian Daboll really makes it a point to A, FaceTime his players, but B, talk about everything but football, because I think you can set the foundation of figuring out what type of guy a person is and how they are motivated, which has been very telling because Daboll's been able to get a lot of his guys.
You mentioned the FaceTime. John Feliciano.
Best story from last year. That Daboll's always comes up on FaceTime and he said, John Feliciano's words, not mine, said his fat face always comes up on the iPhone, which was the best line from last year.
Now, let me tell you something. You look around the NFL at the openings that are there, right? And you say to yourself, well, a team in the division, look, he knows the Patriots way, and he knows the Bills' offense better than anyone. The New York Jets should be a possibility. I don't know if he wants that kind of job. We don't know. How about out in L.A. with the Chargers?
I think it's a perfect fit. The GM also, they graduated from the same high school. Him with Justin Herbert would be a great marriage. And again, for Bills fans, get him out of the division, because he's a really great guy who can really coach if you give him the time. He bounced around to other places, as we showed before with the many faces of Daboll.
Yeah.
Here, he was able to get stability with Sean McDermott and let this offense. Look, this offense has had highs and lows, there's no question, but think about some of the things that you have seen him, the trick plays, adjusting to a run-heavy offense with a young quarterback to now a pass-happy offense with a MVP-caliber quarterback.
Yeah, and when you're watching the game tonight, they're going to show shots of him in the booth, and they're going to talk about him, and that goes a long way with NFL owners. They like to know the guy that they're general manager wants to interview, and Daboll's name has come up. Look, Leslie Frazier's done a great job on defense. Leslie's a little older, has been a head coach before, extremely well thought of around the league, and I do believe Leslie Frazier is going to get interviews for head coaching jobs too at the end of this season. But I think Daboll's name is near the top of many lists. The season still has a regular season plus the playoffs coming. So when we come right back here on Let's Talk Football Live, who is the team that Bills fans don't want to match up with in round number 1 when we come back on Let's Talk Football Live. Oh, I know we're going to get you guys going when it talks about matchups, because some of you watching us tonight right away go, we don't care who we play.
Yes.
And I do think sometimes you have to have that mindset as teams, but I guarantee you this with coaches. There are coaches who realize what's a better matchup for them.
Yeah.
And it happens. It happens in every sport, but in football, it's one game. And, Jenna, I mean, some of these teams can really run it.
Yeah.
And they play a physical brand.
Backup quarterback, you can, if you string together some wins, I mean, your season can change. But I will say, it's so funny to me hearing Bills fans talk about this, because, we'll take whoever, considering I feel like what a turnaround it has been. Before it was, okay, let's, like, in the hunt graphic would come up and the Bills would be in it and be like, okay, we just need to win. This team needs to lose and this other team needs to lose. There can't be tie. Like, to have the control that the Bills have. And, I mean, they're talked about so highly in the division in terms of they're a team that people really believe in. But in terms of matchups, there are a couple teams that are dangerous in the AFC.
Well, it's so funny. It used to be, Jenna, like we were talking about the difference of like, okay, well, maybe we're in the hunt, and now you're definitely in it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what it was like with Josh Allen fans and Brian Daboll fans. It was like, no, we don't want Josh. No, we don't want that. We don't want Allen. We want the Rosen. And then it was like, how many times has it been last year? Get Daboll out of here. We got to get rid of Daboll. And now it's, don't let him leave.
Don't let him leave.
Don't let Brian Daboll leave.
By the way, one other thing I wanted to tell you guys, when you're watching the game tonight and they put that graphic up that says in the hunt, you know who you won't see? The New England Patriots.
I was going to say New England.
Because the hunt is over for the New England Patriots. All right, stay with us. Quick little time. Coming right back for the next segment, talking playoffs. Back here on Let's Talk Football Live, Mike Catalana, Jenna Cottrell, Dan Fates. Hey, look, the playoffs are coming up, right? We're not that far away. The Bills are in a unique spot right now. Dan, when you look at where they are, they're the 2 seed. They know they can win out. the importance of being the 2 seed as opposed to the 3 seed, let everybody know.
It's just that team at the top. It's when you want to face the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't want to face them in the second round. You want to face them in the AFC Championship because the second home playoff game is massive, implications on travel and all that stuff. But you don't want to face the Chiefs until you absolutely have to.
Yeah, and you would get home field, again, in a second round playoff game. And Jenna, we talk a lot about matchups. The type of team you could face. I think the AFC, top to bottom, is as tough as it's been in a long time.
Absolutely. You look at the teams, I mean, we're going to talk about the Ravens, but also the Colts. There's other teams like that where they're the Browns. I mean, these are teams that Dan was saying earlier in the show, there could be a 10-win team or 11-win team that's just barely getting into the playoffs. I mean, you've seen the division and how tough it is. And there's a lot of teams that have really been playing well these last couple of weeks that are in that playoff push. Look at the Titans, teams like that where you're like, this is going to be a tough matchup. I know there's so many expectations this year on the Bills, their ability to win in the playoffs, but this is not going to be a cakewalk even in round one.
Well, there are teams that are playing really well right now, and then there are some teams that are not. And you look at, you're still trying to figure out what kind of a team Tennessee is as they get beaten up last night by a really good Packers team, obviously.
Yeah.
But the Steelers pull out a miracle win in the second half last night, or yesterday, when they seemed like a team that at halftime we would have said, man, how can the Bills face the Steelers? Because they looked dead in the water.
Only thing I will say to you is I look at the divisions and the conferences and say there are teams that look like they can go to the Super Bowl. And I really believe the Bills are one of those teams. And then there's other teams who look like okay, Tennessee looked rough last night in Green Bay, but in one game, just like Baltimore, just like really Cleveland, any of them. I think the Ravens are a team, they've won 4 in a row. Look, they've got an anvil on them now. They were a 1 seed last year and didn't win a playoff game. You know, they've been 2 years in a row not winning in the playoffs. Lamar is Lamar. He's back to playing like Lamar.
Yep.
They are a dangerous team. So we asked you guys, we did a poll. We did a Bills poll tonight, and we asked about the teams that are likely to be in that scenario of the postseason. Who, if you could pick one, who would your team be? So if you could choose who the Bills would play, and
it's the wrong poll.
Oh.
But the Dolphins won.
Okay.
I know that the Dolphins won. I attached the wrong poll.
Titans should forfeit, though, too.
That's it.
But Titans should forfeit.
Wow, that's an old poll. So here we go.
My
so
apologies.
the question was, and the winner was?
The Dolphins.
The Miami Dolphins. And I kind of get that to an extent. You know the Dolphins.
Yes.
You know who they are.
And you know their limitations.
Yes.
Right.
And well, unless Fitzmagic comes in and starts throwing 30-yard bombs with his head getting pulled off. But, I think that's where you're most familiar.
Right.
Seeing them twice. But, Mike, real tricky playing them for a third time. Also playing them possibly, back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a unique situation that's tough.
All right, let's go to some of the comments that we got from the poll today. Dolphins, Josh has shown the ability to carve up the defense at his best games against them. Won't be able to revamp the scheme in time to have success against him. That's from Joe Hanley. Good point. They know that team. Josh does play well. Some other comments that we got today include Pat saying, I'm assuming Fitz plays for Miami, so I'm saying Cleveland. That's a quarterback I would fear the least in Baker Mayfield, especially when he doesn't have his wide receivers. Other comments that we got on the poll today. Oh, we had a couple more. But regardless of that, most people stayed away from the Ravens. They were the team that people worry about.
Yeah, I think they are a wild card for me. I know it's, you can't judge a team off of one half of football. The Colts are a really good team. They are a really good defensive team. Smart head coach, veteran quarterback.
All right, we are going to take a break. When we come back, it's time for our predictions on the game. Who we think is going to win tonight. And I think what we'll do, too, is review how we've done on the entire season, just to make sure you guys are well aware. When we come back on Let's Talk Football Live. Because we were, so here's what I'm going to do. We're on Facebook and we're on YouTube. And so here's what I want to do. I had an opportunity to talk to Greg Connors, who is the sponsor of this show, Connors and Ferris, and talk to him a little bit about the game. By the way, he picks the Bills to win. But the other thing I asked him about is, he's somewhat in the know. In fact, he's at the game tonight, and he's in the know of what the Bills are preparing for fans at a playoff game. So if we can take a listen to that, here's what Greg Connors had to say when we spoke to him today about what he's hearing about fans in the stands in games in Buffalo.
From what I understand, and the way the Bills are operating at this juncture, is that they've had a plan all season long to identify the season ticket holders and how they would do ticket distribution. And they are going through the steps right now. If the governor does give approval, that they will be able to execute on that within a moment's notice. So, everybody's got their fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think it's getting closer.
Yeah.
And, we've all been at the games with no fans, and it's not going to be the same with 7,800 or 6,000. 6,700. I'm sorry, 6,700. But it'll be better than nobody, Jenna.
Oh, absolutely.
What we've seen.
I think just a little, the few amount of people would make an impact. Just because there hasn't been, it's been, like we've talked about, like a very medical, medicinal, I don't know what.
Sterile.
Sterile environment.
Yeah. Anything helps in terms of that scenario.
Yeah.
And you look at the fans that showed up at the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was pretty wild, so.
Yeah.
Home game would be even crazier.
All right. We're taking a quick break and coming right back on Let's Talk Football Live. Welcome back to Let's Talk Football Live, brought to you by Connors and Ferris, Mike Catalana, Dan Fates, and Jenna Cottrell, all together here as you're getting set to watch Bills football tonight, coming up right after this show, 8 o'clock on 13 Wham ABC. Guys, it's like the old days. Monday Night Football, and the Bills are AFC East champs.
Prime
you guys
time.
remember 1990?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
in my dreams.
Yeah, it is. All right, time to pick the games, and I'm going to go first this time because...
Boo.
Well, because I'm winning. So let's go. Let's take a look at the picks from today. And I've got the Bills winning 31-13. I think the game's going to be a little tight early. I think New England will come up with some things, but I think Josh will get going. I think the Bills are a better team. They are a team with more at stake. New England is going to play hard, but Jenna mentioned it earlier. They do not have the talent to keep up with the Bills. I've got the Bills winning tonight by a score of 31-13. Dan, what do you have?
Yeah, I have the Bills winning here massive. We talked about at the beginning of the show. This is a chance for the Bills to finally turn the table on the little brother that was constantly beat up by the big brother. I think it's actually going to be 40-13. I think they can even put up that 40 burger. They've averaged 34 points over the last 4 games. The Patriots have 25 players listed as questionable. I don't know if that's injury or talent-wise. The Bills are going to dominate this game, send a message, and beat up and just get a little bit of revenge.
All right, Jenna, what do you have?
I also have the Bills winning in this one, and I think even though Buffalo won against New England earlier on in the season, I think you're going to see a very motivated Bills team. Like Dan said, little brother, big brother rivalry. I think the Bills have something to prove. I think Josh Allen did not play well earlier on in the season against New England. I think he's going to be motivated to show Bill Belichick, as well as New England, that there's a new sheriff in the AFC East.
Yeah. Well, the Bills are a primetime favorite, so we'll see how they do tonight. There's our season record.
Oh, we get it.
12-1, just in case you wanted to know. Hey, coming up next is Bills football here on 13 Wham ABC. Remember, Buffalo Plus is your place for the full post-game story. We'll be on 13 Wham after the game tonight, but Buffalo Plus for your full post-game story tonight. Enjoy the game. Stay with us. For Jenna Cottrell and Dan Fates, I'm Mike Catalana. Thanks for watching Let's Talk Football Live, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.